session, please stand for a moment of silence, and please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For you, sir. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Clanton?
Present.
Mrs. Doyle?
Here.
Mrs. Johnson?
Here.
Mr. McGee?
Here.
Mr. Page?
Here.
Mr. Smigiel?
Here.
Mr. Thomas?
Here.
Dr. Alexander?
Here, the motion is to dispense with the reading of the minutes of our previous meeting.
Mr. Clanton?
Aye.
Mrs. Doyle?
Aye.
Mrs. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. McGee?
Aye.
Mr. Page?
Aye.
Mr. Smigiel?
Aye.
Mr. Thomas?
Aye.
Dr. Alexander?
Aye. Mr. Clerk, please read the resolution certifying the closed meeting.
I have a resolution certifying a closed meeting of the Council of the City of Norfolk in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. Adopt the resolution. Mr. Clanton?
Aye.
Mrs. Doyle?
Aye.
Mrs. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. McGee?
Aye.
Mr. Page?
Aye.
Mr. Smigiel?
Aye.
Mr. Thomas?
Aye.
Dr. Alexander?
Aye. Good evening and welcome to the Norfolk City Council meeting. Tonight, we will begin with public comments on consent and regular agenda items. Following the consent agenda, we will take up regular agenda items and then new business. To address the council, you should register to speak with the clerk prior to 3 p.m. When your name is called, please come to the podium, state your name, your home address, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Mr. Clerk, before we begin, can you please read the rules governing tonight's meeting?
Certainly, sir. City Council rules permit each speaker 3 minutes in total to speak on any and or all consent and agenda docket items at each of our monthly meetings. If in advance of tonight's meeting you registered with the clerk to comment on a public hearing matter, you'll get an additional 3 minutes to do so. As you approach the council, you'll notice a timer on the lectern. At the beginning of your 3 minutes, a green light will activate. 2.5 minutes into your remarks, you'll notice a yellow light indicating that you have 30 seconds to finish your comments. At the end of the 3 minutes, you'll see a red light and hear a beep. We ask that you conclude your comments at that time. While speakers have an opportunity to address council on docket matters, all comments should be made in a manner that respects the seriousness of the forum and should not be made in a profane, disruptive, sarcastic, or demeaning fashion. All remarks should be directed to the City Council as a body rather than to any particular member of City Council, staff, or the audience. Comments on an agenda item should be germane to that item. A speaker who fails to comply with the basic rules of decorum will be deemed out of order and not allowed to conclude his or her comments. And as a reminder, no signed placard, poster, or like material which may be carried by hand shall be permitted in the City Council chamber or adjoining areas.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. In this order, on R5, Kathy O'Hara, followed by Donna Stockberger. Yes, welcome.
Mayor Alexander, council members, and Mr. Roberts. My name is Kathy O'Hara. I live at 5915 Ocean Boulevard. My topic tonight is the proposed capital improvement budget. The Equity for the Eastside Coalition strongly objects to approval of this budget. More than 61% of it is directed toward downtown and the west side, while the east side continues to wait for meaningful investment. I'm accompanied this evening by coalition members, and I ask them to stand. Notice we are wearing green. It is meant as a message to you. It's time to show us the money. We are grateful $1 million has been restored for conceptualization of the Eastside Rec Center Library, but we remain deeply concerned that the CIP allocates $72 million for MacArthur Center redevelopment while allocating nothing for Military Circle redevelopment. MacArthur Center is only 27 years old and still in relatively good condition. Military Circle is 56 years old and has become a blight on our community. Eastside residents deserve to know why one project is moving forward with a clear funding timeline while the other remains uncertain. When the mayor announced a combined rec center library was in the works for the east side, he identified its location as Military Circle. But now redevelopment there has stalled. There is no reasonable timeline for the promised center or relief from the surrounding blight. Councilman Clanton recently met with our coalition and explained the city's financial challenges, including the fact debt service is outpacing revenue growth. Based on that presentation, we do not see how Norfolk can realistically support two large mixed-use redevelopment projects in a similar time frame. If city leaders want to calm our fears, that they need to provide a clear explanation of how that is doable. When you outline a 5-year timeline in the CIP for MacArthur Center but maintain a stony silence on Military Circle's fate, the message we receive is maybe one day, possibly never. Tonight, we are serving notice that residents are paying attention. We are tired of rising real estate taxes without a significant commitment to improving our community. On May 5th, I emailed Sean Washington requesting he provide the coalition with a Military Circle update at a scheduled November meeting. I hope he responds soon, as silence can be interpreted as secrecy. We, however, are transparent about our expectations and intentions. We want an update within 6 months that shows real progress on the Military Circle project. And in the next budget cycle, we intend to advocate assertively for a neighborhood-focused CIP that finally brings equity to Norfolk's underserved communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Charlotte Smith Worley will follow Donna.
Good evening. My name is Donna Dillon Stockberger. I live at 6036 Freeman Avenue in Norfolk, which I may note is the 12th oldest city in Norfolk. And my roots run deep here, having been born and raised in Norfolk and lived here most of my life. But like many others in this room, I'm disheartened by the inequitable capital improvement plan budget you're scheduled to vote on tonight. Large ticket economic development projects in downtown have consistently trumped neighborhood and school improvement over the years. This year is no different, possibly even the worst yet. What I believe council is missing is the fact of how inequitable budgets are costing this city. Since 2020, our city has lost thousands of residents. It's not a speculation, it's a fact. In 2020, our population was 238,000. Today, or 2024, it was 231,000. And when people leave a city like Norfolk, they're not the wealthiest, and they're not the poorest. They're largely working families and homeowners, the very people who stabilize neighborhoods and sustain a city's tax base. I believe this migration of the middle class is directly related to city leadership's penchant for building a city of Norfolk that visitors will like rather than investing in the people who have a Norfolk address. This level of turnover is not healthy. It is a warning sign. It tells us people are not putting down roots here. They're passing through, or worse yet, they're just leaving. And where are they going? They're going to Chesapeake, Virginia Beach, anywhere they believe they can find better schools, safer neighborhoods, and a higher quality of life. While I live in Norfolk, I taught for many years in Virginia Beach Public Schools, and so I saw this firsthand repeatedly throughout the years. Meanwhile, our median household income lags behind the state. Poverty remains higher than it should be, and too many neighborhoods, especially on the east side where I live, continue to wait for investments that never materialize. So we have a hard question, yet a real question to ask. Why would a middle-class family stay? If Norfolk is cutting school maintenance and delaying community investments, as is the case with this budget, we are in essence telling Norfolk families their future is somewhere else. If this trend continues, we're not just losing people, we're hollowing out our city. So tonight I urge you, take the people who are here tonight seriously. Invest in the neighborhoods that are being left behind. Fund the schools. Commit to a more equitable distribution of financial resources than what this CIP represents now. I ask you to vote it down and start over. Thank you.
Thank you. Charlotte Smith Worley. And Dustin Wallace will follow Charlotte Smith Worley.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Charlotte Smith Worley. I live at 1188 Kempsville Road. Tonight, I'm asking council to vote against the agenda item R5 and direct staff to return with a more equitable 5-year CIP. I find it deeply unfair that this budget includes millions for redevelopment of MacArthur Center while allocating zero for redevelopment of Military Circle. Once again, the East Side is told to wait. Restoring last year's $1 million for planning for our recreation, library, and media center does not correct the imbalance, and we are not going away. But tonight I want to focus on another consequence of this unbalanced CIP, Norfolk Public Schools. As a member of the School Consolidation and Closure Committee, I helped develop a difficult but necessary plan to address the declining enrollment. What we still do not have is a serious plan to maintain the schools that will remain open. The school board requested a measly $17 million for major school maintenance next year. The city budget includes only $8 million, and that is not even new city funding. Those dollars are reversion funds, money already belonging to Norfolk Public Schools through the revenue sharing program formula. In plain terms, the budget allocates zero new city dollars for school maintenance. Why does this matter? Because 47 schools will be operating this fall, and the average age of those buildings is more than 50 years, and 17 of those schools already have unacceptable facility condition scores. And $7 million is not enough to put a roof on one high school. Yet while our schools continue to crumble, next year budget funds $88.7 million for Scope and Chrysler Hall renovations, $2.5 million for the Harbor Park improvements, $1 million for the Virginia Arts Festival renovations, $600,000 for maintenance for the Wisconsin, and $215,000 for a mural in the Waterside Garage. Budgets reflect priorities. Right now, this CIP tells our students, our teachers, families, and the community they are not the priority. I urge you to reject this plan and demand a budget that invests fairly in all parts of Norfolk, including our children, our schools, and the East Side. No equity, vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. Justin Wallace is followed by Liz Albert. Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor.
Good evening.
Members of the City Council. My name is Dustin Wallace. I can be found at 5905 Brenda Avenue, Norfolk, Virginia. Today, I'm speaking in regards to line item R5. I ask you guys to vote against this budget as it currently stands. As we stated before, a year ago, we were promised $1 million line item to redevelop a portion of Military Circle in forms of a community center. First of all, I wanted to thank you for reinstituting this line item as a conceptual process, but we need to go further from there. Neighborhoods are built on communities. And with this redevelopment process, the community center that we're proposing, the $1 million, is really just a down payment for what we're looking as a full-fledged redevelopment plan. Community centers act as stability anchors that fund job training programs, after-school programs, fitness and recreation. It has the effect of bringing crime down and fostering economic resilience. This $1 million would be, as stated, just a fraction of a $1 billion redevelopment for Military Circle that could potentially come into fruition. But we need to have commitment from this city council to make that a reality. And as my colleagues have stated, that too much of this funding and projects have been focused on the downtown area. We got to focus on a Military Circle because that is where the generational investment come, and that's where the city of Norfolk will become vibrant for the next 100 years. For the $1 billion redevelopment, we're talking about $15 to $25 million of tax revenue that would return to the city on an annual basis. And these come from property taxes, meal taxes, sale taxes, and business taxes. Starting with this $1 million community center returns $1 that is spent on that returns $3 to $8, which is a small fraction of what the total investment is, but constitutes a magnified return on investment. We got to start small, and we got to start at this community center because the community is what brings people together. So I'm going to ask for two things for a year from now. One, a solid commitment to a community center to include designs, much like Ward's Corner is right now, and a meaningful phased approach for the redevelopment of Military Circle Mall area. Thank you.
Thank you. Liz Albert and Marcia Mock will follow Liz Albert.
Dr. Alexander, members of City Council, and City Manager Roberts. My name is Liz Albert, and I live at 5905 Appleton Drive in Norfolk, and I'm here to speak on R5. I am here tonight to say publicly something I thought I would never say out loud. I'm about ready to give up on Norfolk. For years and years, downtown and the west side have been the big winners in Norfolk's capital improvement plans. Citywide neighborhood investment has never truly taken precedence. I'm just one citizen, but I believe I represent many residents when I say we are tired of hearing that large-scale downtown economic development will eventually benefit everyone. Tell that to the schools whose maintenance budgets have been neglected for decades. Tell that to Eastside residents whose taxes have risen dramatically, yet we still cannot visit our local library on a Saturday. Tell that to young Eastside families who do not have a quality neighborhood park, only the deteriorating Poplar Halls Park. Tell that to residents of my Eastside neighborhood who have been told that their uneven sidewalks have not been repaired because it's not in the budget. As a longtime advocate for Norfolk schools and neighborhoods, I feel defeated. I have come to believe there will never be equitable citywide investment, and especially that there will never be large-scale quality redevelopment at Military Circle. City leadership continues to put most of Norfolk's financial eggs into the downtown basket. If anyone thinks I'm being unfair, look at the capital improvement plan you're going to vote on tonight. It contains $72 million for the redevelopment of the MacArthur Center and not one penny for Military Circle Mall. Norfolk is making clear which project is the priority. And if this city ever does get around to doing something at Military Circle, it is likely to be a watered-down version of redevelopment. One more in the line with the car washes and cheap motels that dot the Military Highway corridor. That has been the East Side's past, and sad to say, it's likely to be our future. In one final request to council, I asked you to prove me wrong. Take a stand for equitable citywide investment. Vote the CIP down. Thank you.
Thank you. Marcia? Marcia Mark will be followed by Barrett Hicks.
Thank you. My name is Marcia Mock. I live at 7710 Parktown Road, and I'm the president of the Norfolk Federation of Civic Leagues. I do get a lot of input from them, of course. Dr. Alexander, Mr. Roberts, our dedicated council, and our stenographer. I just want to say thank you for all that you do. Thank you for allowing us to comment on the budget. We were hoping you'd suspend the adoption tonight until next week, just so that you could hear from us, think about what we've said, and just give it some more thought. Hopefully, there'd be changes. We all hope the forgotten neighborhoods have monies pushed their way to enhance our neighborhoods more equitably. It does scream lopsided to favored neighborhoods, whether in a spreadsheet form or graphical form. The opposition to the budget CIP has come from all the forgotten corners of the city. East of Military Highway, It runs from Chesapeake to the Bay, Chesapeake the city. It's forgotten land, the sidewalks, the streets, the intersections, storm ditches, now grown shut, flooding now because of it. I bring this info up as the budget proposed for fiscal year 27 will likely be passed in a few minutes. But please know, we believe a bit of fixing up needs doing in 70% of the city. And people-wise, that is a majority of the city. That is a majority of your support. The big-ticket real estate items, historically, they have only made a few happy while holding the beauty back from the same 70%. Please work with us over the summer to have discussions for fiscal year 28 before it even begins in September. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Derek?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. I'm Barrett Hicks, President of the Concerned Citizens Association. I happen to be born in Compostela, raised in Berkeley. I say again, as these folks that come before me, no to this CIP. I cannot believe that you guys again, after 30-plus years, have not offered anything to the Berkeley community in this CIP. It's been 30 years. Mr. Mayor, it really hurts me to my heart that this CIP fails to identify the fact that you had a rendering on the table back in 2024, even before you started on the other projects for the Berkeley community. And I'm talking about Berkeley, specifically Berkeley. We're not talking about the South Side, we're talking about Berkeley. With all the shuttered buildings around it and everything, with no child being able to come, we're in a recreation center. The last CIP project done in Berkeley was 1978. Berkeley Rec Center, 1978, with very few upgrades or anything in that sense. So each time you guys put out this filler like you're going to do something for the Berkeley community, then you pull it back. This CIP reflects exactly what has gone on for years and years and years. And we're talking about the records will tell you, I speak to it for 30 years. If we go all the way in, it's been about 50 years. Unacceptable. While these children find themselves in this quagmire of not having the resources, as you look at all the other numbers as well, whether it be healthcare, whether it be who's creating the most crime, and all of that stuff is topped off with the fact that you do not do anything in the Berkeley community besides talk about it in the negative. They're no different as we've tried to, as the concerned citizens, bring you in to see that. We put on 5K walk runs so you can see that we live and we are just like you. It's totally unacceptable. Totally unacceptable. And I say definitely vote no on this. And it's questionable practice for anyone even to have put this forward, Mr. Manager. Questionable practice. Thank you.
Mr. Bull, ready for the agenda, PH1?
Certainly, sir.
PH1.
Public hearing 1, scheduled this day pursuant to state law to hear comments on an ordinance approving a license agreement between the City of Norfolk and Tidewater Community College for use of a portion of the parking lot located at the Jordan Newby Library for a mobile health care trailer. I have an ordinance approving a license agreement between the City of Norfolk and Tidewater Community College for use of a portion of the parking lot located at the Jordan Newby Library for a mobile healthcare trailer. Dispense with the charter requirement for reading the ordinance twice and adopt with the effective date. Mr. Clanton.
Aye.
Mr. Doyle. Mrs. Doyle. Mrs. Johnson.
If you haven't had the opportunity to go out to visit the mobile health trailer at Jordan Newby, I invite you to do so. It's amazing, the partnership between the city and TCC as well as Jordan Newby Library. I vote aye.
Thank you. Mr. McGee.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Page.
Aye.
Mr. Smigiel.
Aye.
Mr. Thomas.
Aye.
Dr. Alexander.
Aye. Page 2.
Public hearing 2 scheduled to stay pursuant to state law to hear comments on an ordinance approving a lease agreement with Verizon Virginia LLC for the lease of city-owned property located in the city of Virginia Beach near Shell Road. I have an ordinance approving a lease agreement with Verizon Virginia LLC for the lease of city-owned property located in the city of Virginia Beach near Shell Road. Dispense with the charter requirement for reading the ordinance twice and adopt with the effective date. Mr. Clanton. Aye. Mrs. Doyle.
Aye.
Mrs. Johnson.
Aye.
Mr. McGee.
Aye.
Mr. Page.
Aye.
Mr. Smigiel.
Aye.
Mr. Thomas.
Aye.
Dr. Alexander.
Aye. Page 3.
Public hearing 3 scheduled to stay pursuant to state law to hear comments on an ordinance approving a second amendment to lease agreement between the city of Norfolk as landlord and Sidney Mears as tenant for premises located at 210 East Main Street, Suite 1 in the city of Norfolk, Virginia, and authorizing the city manager to execute the lease amendment to lease agreement on behalf of the city of Norfolk. I have an ordinance approving a second amendment to lease agreement between the city of Norfolk as landlord and Sidney Mears as tenant for premises located at 210 East Main Street, Suite 1, and authorizing the city manager to execute the second amendment to lease agreement. Dispense with the charter requirement for reading the ordinance twice and adopt with the effective date. Mr. Clanton. Mrs. Doyle.
Aye.
Mrs. Johnson.
Aye.
Mr. McGee.
Aye.
Mr. Page.
Aye.
Mr. Smigiel.
Aye.
Mr. Thomas.
Aye.
Dr. Alexander.
Aye. Page 4.
Public hearing 4 scheduled to stay pursuant to state law to hear comments on an ordinance approving a First Amendment to lease agreement between the city of Norfolk as landlord and Magoo Cigar Lounge LLC as tenant for premises located at 246 East Main Street, Norfolk, Virginia, and authorizing the city manager to execute the amendment. I have an ordinance approving the First Amendment to lease agreement between the city of Norfolk as landlord and Magoo's Cigar Lounge LLC as tenant for premises located at 246 East Main Street, and authorizing the city manager to execute the amendment. Dispense with the charter requirement for reading the ordinance twice and adopt with the effective date. Mr. Clanton. Aye. Mrs. Doyle.
Aye.
Mrs. Johnson.
I'm sorry. Aye.
Mr. McGee.
Aye.
Mr. Page.
Aye.
Mr. Smigiel.
Aye.
Mr. Thomas.
Aye.
Dr. Alexander.
Aye. Mr. Clerk, the consent agenda will be considered in one block unless otherwise noted by the council.
Certainly, sir. Approve the consent agenda and dispense with the charter requirement for reading the ordinances twice and adopt with the effective dates. Mr. Clanton. Mrs. Doyle.
Aye.
Mrs. Johnson.
Aye.
Mr. McGee.
Aye.
Mr. Page.
Aye.
Mr. Smigiel.
Aye.
Mr. Thomas.
Aye.
Dr. Alexander.
Aye. Mr. Clerk, R1.
R1 is an ordinance approving the calendar year 2027 officer and employee health insurance plans, the employers and employee contribution rates, and a one-time lump sum contribution to employees' health savings accounts, and authorizing the expenditure of a sum of up to $116,552,000 appropriated for that purpose. Dispense with the charter requirement for reading the ordinance twice and adopt with the effective date. Mr. Clanton.
Aye.
Mrs. Doyle.
Aye.
Mrs. Johnson.
Aye.
Mr. McGee.
Aye.
Mr. Page.
Aye.
Mr. Smigiel.
Aye.
Mr. Thomas.
Aye.
Dr. Alexander.
Aye. R2.
R2 is an ordinance amending subsection 16, subparagraph WWWW of the FY 2026 Annual Appropriations Ordinance Number 49966 regarding the Virginia Opioid Abatement Authority grant for the Operation Stop Norfolk City project so as to identify the city as the fiscal agent and identify the subrecipients, and amending the annual grants plan and the FY 2026 budget to amend the grant information. Dispense with the charter requirement for reading the ordinance twice and adopt with the effective date. Mr. Clanton. Mrs. Doyle.
Aye.
Mrs. Johnson.
Aye.
Mr. McGee.
Aye.
Mr. Page.
Aye.
Mr. Smigiel.
Aye.
Mr. Thomas. Dr. Alexander.
Aye. R4.
R4 is an ordinance approving the Norfolk Law Library's FY 2027 annual budget and authorizing the disbursement of funds by the city treasurer to the law library. Dispensed with the charter requirement for reading the ordinance twice and adopt with the effective date. Mr. Clanton. Mrs. Doyle.
Aye.
Mrs. Johnson.
Aye.
Mr. McGee.
Aye.
Mr. Page.
Aye.
Mr. Smigiel.
Aye.
Mr. Thomas. Dr. Alexander.
Aye. R4.
R4 is an ordinance to amend and reordain the capital improvement plan budget for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2025 and ending.
Alan, I'm sorry. So, I just want to make sure it's been corrected that it was R3, not R4 on
The prior
and we're
vote
back
was
to
for
R4.
R3.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
It was read correctly, but I said R4.
Gotcha. No problem.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you for staying on top of that.
I try.
R4 is an ordinance to amend and reordain the capital improvement plan budget for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2025 and ending June 30, 2026, so as to replace the acquire metal detectors for NCSB buildings project with install video surveillance systems in NCSB facilities project, and to reappropriate and authorize the expenditure of the funds previously earmarked for metal detectors for the surveillance project. Dispense with the charter requirement for reading the ordinance twice and adopt with the effective date. Mr. Clanton.
Aye.
Mrs. Doyle.
Aye.
Mrs. Johnson.
Aye.
Mr. McGee.
Aye.
Mr. Page.
Aye.
Mr. Smigiel.
Aye.
Mr. Thomas.
Aye.
Dr. Alexander.
Aye. Mr. Clerk, R5, and we may have a motion on R5 to continue for 1 week.
The motion for R5 is to continue for 1 week, which would be May 19th. Mr. Clanton.
Aye.
Mrs. Doyle.
Aye.
Mrs. Johnson.
Aye.
Mr. McGee.
Aye.
Mr. Page.
Aye.
Mr. Smigiel.
I was looking forward to voting no on this tonight, but I don't know if anything's going to change by extending it for a week. I do have comments I would like to make, but I can reserve those and save them for 2 weeks from now. But I don't think that anything's going to change. Or sorry, 1 week. I forgot we're on a different cycle. I don't think anything's going to change in that period of time. I know, Mr. Mayor, if you give me just a second, one thing I did want to say. This is my 16th budget that I'll be voting on tonight, and I just want to encourage the city manager and the budget staff in the future. This has probably been the least transparent budget process I've ever seen in my 16 years. There was no public discussion among council members about any of the issues. It is, if you have a problem, talk to the city manager and we'll see if we can get it fixed. But we need to go back to the time in which we went out to communities and held public discussions about the budget. So it's said in the description that the CIP budget is in line with the community survey that goes out and the priorities of the citizens, and it's not. There's parts of it that are, but it's a very small portion of this. And so I'm challenging the city manager and staff next year to go back to where we have meetings in the community and have these discussions and listen to them. Let them understand and hear directly what the city is facing with debt. I think the more that you educate folks, it makes it better. I did that. I spoke to 7 of my 10 civic leagues in the period of time that I could get out to this and share with them where we were so that they had a better understanding. There are some misconceptions in this budget, but there's also some things in there that are not necessarily a priority for citizens. And what I heard, Mr. Mayor, and hopefully in the next week there can be some adjustments, is my community understands that they have to pay taxes. I think most people understand that that's part of our government. We don't like paying it, but we have to pay taxes in order to have police, fire, schools, city services. But we want those tax dollars to go to the things that are important to us. I think folks don't understand that sometimes you do have to spend money to make money because of the past spending of the city, particularly on my side of the city as well. There's an understanding that that's what's caused the city to be in a lot of debt, and they don't see the fruit of that, that spending. But they want to see it spent on their roads that haven't been resurfaced in 30 years. They do want us to address the issue with maintenance with our schools, that we have underfunded them, and there was some voodoo in this budget with money switching around with reversion funds, but it still doesn't address the issue that was brought up that replacing a roof on a school is $6 million, $7 million on a high school. They talk about those issues, and then they say, well, if you're not going to spend our tax dollars on that, then lower our tax rate and increase it for the people where you are spending the money. And so we have to do better when we go with our budget process and making sure that we get as many voices. It can't just be a survey that's posted on social media and you expect people to respond to it when they're not paying attention. We have to get out into the community, speak to folks, educate them. That's the number one thing that helps with misconceptions, and then get that feedback and bring it back and make it part of our budget. So I did want to say that part tonight, as it may influence what happens over the next week. I doubt it, but we have to do better with that. So I'll vote to extend it for a week, but it's not going to change anything.
Thank you. Mr. Thomas?
Aye.
Dr. Alexander?
Aye. R6.
R6 is an ordinance approving the annual budget and appropriating funds for operation of the city for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2026 and ending June 30th, 2027. Appropriating U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development HUD entitlement grants, appropriating other grants, fees, revenues, and opioid settlement funds, regulating the payment of money from the city treasury, and maintaining the tax rate on real estate within the city at $1.23 per every $100 of assessed value. Dispense with the charter requirement for reading the ordinance twice and adopt with the effective date. Mr. Clanton.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to vote on the operating budget here. I look forward to definitely trying to do some continual work on the CIP. Only being a year, not even a year and a half yet on council, but having the experience from serving on the school board, I know there are always competing interests. Dollars are limited. And the only thing I can do is to continue to make my commitment to work with community and my colleagues here to ensure that we're putting those items there. I appreciate Councilman Smeagol bringing up the issue about roads. I've heard that of over 30 years. But I appreciate the manager for definitely listening to the issue regarding the employees and their pay, and in regards to also their insurance, making sure that those things were there. We need to have great staff and we need to appreciate them. And so that's one thing I want to definitely say. I appreciate us continuously work towards that, and as well as the operating budget to make sure we meet the needs. But we need to ensure that the dollars that we generate, the community sees that in their neighborhoods. And that's a commitment that I have to continue to work towards doing that. And so I vote aye.
Mrs. Doyle?
Aye.
Mrs. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. McGee?
Aye.
Mr. Page?
Well, it's a lot of items that have been left behind. I have football teams since we began to close down recreation centers because we were moving to a different style of doing business, going with larger recreation centers for more communities. I think that we jumped the gun, particularly in our marginalized communities, where our children are suffering from trauma stacked on top of trauma. And we don't have any money to support these football teams yet. We have an idea, but we don't have anything that's saying that this is going to happen. And this morning, when we briefly spoke, me and the city manager was told that the football teams may have to pay the money back. I'm just concerned. As it is to the budget, a lot of money is generated in Ward 4. There were some things that were said about downtown. If you go throughout history and understand what built downtown, for those of us that are from this city, that have been here, I remember when downtown was a ghost town, and that was not that long ago. So the money had to come from somewhere to invest in downtown for it to become what it is. And we're continuing to do that. So I'm learning to support my administration. The city manager works very hard, but I think that my colleague, Mr. Spiegel, said some things about getting back out and hearing the community. Not just those of us that are elected, but we're all here because of the citizens, and their voice must be heard in our decisions. That's what this whole idea is of what we do. When we become the brilliant ones and we have all the answers and we know what's best for you without you being involved in it, we're all in trouble. And that's what's going on, not just here, but it's going on abroad. And we have to be our safe place, your local elected officials. So for that, there are a few things up here that I need, but in good faith, my heart is telling me to vote no on this too. So there you have it. I'm voting no.
Mr. Smigiel?
Yep. I want to thank the city manager for addressing some issues with the operating budget regarding salaries, particularly our first responders. If you're not aware, in this part of the budget, we're adding over 40 firefighters and EMT into our fire department so that we can handle some issues with overtime, also response time. We'll be the first locality, Mr. Manager, in this area to do this, to go to 4 shifts. And so we're hiring for firefighters, EMT, if you're interested. But it was a great addition to this budget and something that I think is meaningful and will help our community. So I vote for this. Aye.
Mr. Thomas? Aye. Dr. Alexander?
Aye. Clerk,
R7?
R7.
R7 is an ordinance appropriating special revenue funds totaling $76,444,364 to the school board of the city of Norfolk for fiscal year 2027. Dispense with the charter requirement for reading the ordinance twice and adopt with the effective date. Mr. Clanton?
Aye.
Mrs. Doyle?
Aye.
Mrs. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. McGee?
Aye.
Mr. Page?
Aye.
Mr. Smigiel,
Aye.
Mr. Thomas?
Aye.
Dr. Alexander?
Aye. R7.
R8, sir,
R8.
is an ordinance providing a one-time $625 supplement for certain Norfolk employees' retirement system retirees. Dispense with the charter requirement for reading the ordinance twice and adopt with the effective date. Mr. Clanton?
Aye.
Mrs. Doyle?
Aye.
Mrs. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. McGee?
Aye.
Mr. Page?
Aye.
Mr. Smigiel,
Aye.
Mr. Thomas?
Aye.
Dr. Alexander?
Aye. Mr. Clerk, do you have a?
That's all I have, sir.
You have another? Okay. All right, we'll move into the new business portion. The first speaker is Ms. Susan Matusik, and she would be followed by Carrie Cooper.
All right, tell me when I can start. Ready? Good evening. I will be back in the community at the end of the month. My fire claim is up. Nice to see you all. Accountability and advocacy. I, Susan Matusik, have co-owned 8214 since 2020. I had to buy affordable. I'm not going to read everything in here because it's kind of personal, but I want you to see it, and I don't want to cry. So, after my parents died, I have been picked on the whole time I've been in there, and when my house burnt down, still picked on. So I just want you to know that's not happening anymore. RICO charges exploitation of seniors. It's not happening anymore. May is Mental Health Month. Wavy TVN failed miserably when they did that fake news story of mine in 2023, and they're going to pay. So is any person that abuses a senior, a disabled person, an animal in front of me. If you want to see some things, go to Portsmouth Circuit Court, CL 24-1979, investigate Abigail Ottinger and Doug Ottinger. No, we have one of them, So, when you put care and caretaking, whether you're a teacher, a daughter, whatever you do, you have to make sure it's equitably fair. That's what we're all talking about, being equitably fair. Nextdoor app, don't believe everything that you read or hear from those weirdos. It's like Deliverance in there, cops, don't listen to them.
vandalism, cat killing, have lawyers like Victoria Vaccaro to do me dirty and obstruct justice and deny me my voice. I hope she gets disbarred. In Virginia Beach, the same action that's happened here is there, CR 25-1837, still stemming from a case with our cops not doing their jobs. My inheritance, my Allstate insurance claim does not belong to anybody but me. Let's get it straight, my money. Page 3 through 6 is pamphlets for you all, and it shows what we can do as victims. And you have a picture of my pretty lot. Isn't it pretty? It's gonna have a nice little house on it. I'm building it. I'm not going anywhere. And there's a picture of the house. But coordinated crisis response team, I want you to kind of look at that for people that get displaced or go through violence and all that. So education, social services, Miss Mamie Johnson could probably do something with this and make sure we coordinate it with the Community Services Board. And, people just don't know about these things. And the YWCA helps women too, and they've helped me on the phone many times. But I'm not gonna be attacked from my property. So I'm gonna get a little glamper, a little camper, and I'm gonna go around in the little areas and hook up, and then I'm gonna let my builder, who I meet May 21st, build my house. So in closing, please give everybody a voice. I am no better than anyone else, but I'm gonna have the same damn rights as everybody else. Peace. Please read this and get in touch with me. My P.O. Box is 6052, Virginia Beach, Virginia, and make sure our mailman doesn't steal our mail.
Thank you. Carrie Cooper? Carrie Cooper. Carrie Cooper. Carrie Cooper? No Carrie, okay. Chosen Wilkins. All right.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Dustin Wilkins, also known as Chosen Wilkins, and I'm here to address the systematic failure in Norfolk's judicial and law enforcement's infrastructure, specifically regarding extrinsic fraud and the protection of status over truth. When our judicial system is used to shield powerful, it creates a direct safety crisis for the Black and LGBTQIA+ communities. I am here to name the leaders responsible for this breakdown and to challenge our city to do better than the divisive politics we see on the national stage. Under Chief Mark Talbert and Special Investigations Unit, we have seen a selective application of law. When a Black LGBTQ+ citizen presents evidence of fraud on a court, they are met with a wall of silence. When the fraud involves a high-profile figure, the investigation is buried. This isn't a failure of policing. It is a failure to protect the basic liberties that our democracy is supposed to guarantee. We cannot have a system where the police investigations unit picks and chooses whose rights are worth defending and based on social standing. Next, I address Commonwealth attorneys Ramin Fadahi. Mr. Fadahi, being our chief Commonwealth attorney in Norfolk, campaigned on justice reform, but true reform is not found in a campaign slogan. In Norfolk Circuit Court, civil case CL 260001720, we see an office pressure to protect the win, even when that win is built on a documented perjury, when the legacy of a celebrity like Missy Elliott is prioritized over constitutional rights of a citizen, the rhetoric of equity becomes hollow. We need a prosecutor who understands the reform means correcting injustice and not protecting the powerful. Finally, I address Norfolk Circuit Court's Chief Judge, Judge Robert Rigney. The bench is the final safeguard of our democracy. Yet when extrinsic fraud is allowed to persist under his oversight, it validates the idea that status outweighs evidence. Because this infrastructure has failed to act, I have been forced to pursue a financial filing against the said, to seek the justice this system has blocked. But the larger issue is the judicial vacuum that has been allowed to exist right here in Norfolk. In conclusion, we often hear national arguments about the state of our democracy and the protection of our freedoms, often centered on figures like Donald Trump. But we cannot focus all of our attention on the president when these same practices of ignoring rights and liberties are happening right here in our own backyard. Whether leadership is Democrat or Republican, if they exercise the same bias and protect the same frauds, the result of the community is the same. It doesn't matter what side of the fence you're on. It is built to keep justice out. I'm asking the council to stand for Black and LGBTQ+ communities by demanding an inquiry into the judicial infrastructure. Let's make Norfolk a place where democracy and the law applies to everyone, not just the famous and powerful. Thank you.
Barrett Hicks. Barrett Hicks is followed by Alexander O'Loughlin.
I'm Barrett Hicks again, 1515 East Indian River Road. I'm the president of the Concerned Citizens Association. I'm a former Air Force Senior Master Recruiter. Again, Berkeley raised. Mr. Mayor, this budget and just the biopsychosocial spiritual aspect of what is going on in our community, communities that look and feel like Berkeley, it is really appalling to see what is happening in this great city. And I spoke to the fact of the Air Force career and whatnot. You know, I'm world trained. But 30 years ago, I decided to come back home because the Lord said that's where you're supposed to be. You're supposed to lead your people. Because that's what happened for me. The additional adult voices around me as a child allowed me to get out of that Berkeley community only to come back. And that's what we ask for when it comes to our young people. But they have to have somewhere to come back to. They have to have the recreation aspects of being able to enjoy. I mean, as a child, we already knew that once we came to the rec center and worked with within the rec center, that summer, when you turned 16, you would have a job. My first job was as a recreation aide at the Berkeley Community Center. That led on to understanding the responsibilities of a community. But that with that world trained aspect of it, though, I said, we've got to do better. Well, Mr. Mayor, I've been coming here for a long time, many years. I heard some talk about the fact of people or communities getting what they get. We know that Berkeley, just because the magnitude of our homes, they pay more taxes than they do in Purdy Lake because of the magnitude of homes. So stop not funding Berkeley because you say they don't pay the taxes, they don't have the tax base, because we do. So, Mr. Mayor, with that said, I'm asking for some federal intervention, so I'm going to present this to your clerk here, or sir, if you will. We're going to file a federal civil rights case against the city of Norfolk. And we hope that we can get some help to come in here to look at what has been happening, because there's a lot of stuff that's going on that we need some intervention to happen. So please accept my intent to sue, and I thank you, sir.
Thank you. Alexander O'Loughlin.
Good evening, County Council. My name's Alex O'Loughlin. I was born and raised in Norfolk, and I currently live here in Park Place. I'm here to express my opposition to the city's continued use of the Flock ALPR system. At previous council meetings, I spoke about findings from the Virginia State Crime Commission showing that some agencies across Virginia were not operating the Flock system with the limits established by state law. I also raised concerns about the auditability and whether misuse of the system can actually be verified. Tonight, I want to focus on something a little more fundamental. And that's what the infrastructure is, what it's capable of, and how it can change now that it's already in place. What is physically deployed is not just license plate readers. The hardware mounted across our city are high-resolution cameras pointed at our streets. And this system is continuously capturing detailed video of everything happening in frame. A continuous video feed is not a single-purpose record. It's a rich source of information. It can be used in different ways depending on how the software applied to it is configured, whether that's reading license plates, recognizing the item someone's carrying, tracking people commonly seen together, or even recognizing faces. Changes in what this system can do does not require new equipment. Capabilities can change through software updates. That means the system can expand in scope over time without any visible changes to what we see around our city. And these scenarios aren't abstract to me. These are the kind of systems and threat models that I deal with every day in data privacy. A consistent lesson in this space is that data capability, it tends to expand a lot faster than the public's understanding of how it can be used. We already know from this council and from prior testimony that concerns about misuse and oversight aren't theoretical. Residents have already raised real examples and given real concerns about how these systems operate in practice. So I think it's reasonable for council to ask themselves a simple question tonight. When a system like this is installed across the entire city, and when the vendor controls the software, the updates, the analysis environment, and the record retrieval process, do we really believe that the system's only being used in this limited and narrow way? Or is it more realistic to assume that everything the system is capable of doing is something that it will eventually be explored, enabled, and monetized over time? And have you ever seen things like this happen before? This is the concern I'm trying to raise tonight. Not just what is intended today, but what's possible now that we've already allowed the surveillance system within our city. Because the Trojan horse has really already passed the gates. I'd like to add that I think a lot of the discussion about the community budget and stuff, I think this would be a nice item to add on there that I don't think the residents of the city got a fair chance to raise issue with before it was dispensed. Thank you.
Thank you. Pamela Francis. Pamela Francis. Pamela Francis, okay. Samuel Willis. Samuel. Samuel will be followed by Ashley Verbert.
Counselor and the mayor. Good evening, councilors. I'm Samuel Wallace from 888 Magazine Lane, and I stand here once again to chastise you for your inaction, like truth coming out of her well to shame mankind. Last month, Virginians voted to counteract Trump's blatant election rigging. While the U.S. Supreme Court was busy completing its work demolishing the Voting Rights Act, Virginia justices moved to block us. Unequal justice reigns across America as legislatures in Texas, Florida, Tennessee, North and South Carolina, Louisiana, and Alabama rush to eliminate districts of black representatives and stack the House against the coming wave of reprisal by American voters. This is fascism, plain and simple. It is ascendant in our country, sinking its roots into every branch of our government, stripping away our rights and our ability to resist. Some of its agents wear its colors proudly and make Nazi salutes at rallies. Others are more subtle, collaborators who do the bidding of the Trump regime under the pretense of sensibility, who empower the police state that is coming for our friends and our neighbors, which openly seeks to crush dissent and intimidate critics into silence. Do you think I exaggerate? Even now that Trump has declared anti-fascists an existential terrorist threat? Last month, residents of Dunwoody, Georgia, learned the cameras installed by their city's contract with Flock Group, Inc. were being used for sales demos to police departments across the country. A children's gym, a playground, a Jewish community center, a pool. These are some of the places Flock can peer into in Dunwoody. By design, Flock customers become part of a massive nationwide panopticon accessible to anyone who signs a contract with them. You may believe that you are installing these cameras to protect your citizens and reduce crime. What you are actually doing is caging them in a dystopian machine designed to track their every move, to build profiles on them, to turn them into points in a database easily combed through by anyone and everyone with access to the system, regardless of their intent. I have warned you that we have no control over what is done with the data we allow Flock to collect and keep. I have stood here and told you that this private surveillance corporation has no accountability, no oversight, no auditing, and no transparency. I ask you to look me in the eyes and tell me that we are not owed these things. Tell me, counselors, open your mouths and say it, because for 3 months now I have stood in front of you and called on you to take action, and you have responded with deafening silence and patronizing applause. I am not a carnival barker. I am here to hold you to account for contract 9743-0-2023 and the $500,000 a year of our tax money you pay to put us at the mercy of a company that does not answer to us. In this moment in history, to remain silent is a statement in itself. To do nothing to combat evil is to collaborate with evil. We ask nothing of you that is not wholly within your power to do. Vote to terminate the contract and take down the cameras. Unlike us, your hands are not tied. The buck stops with you, and we hold you responsible.
Thank you. Lucerne D. Maldala. Lucerne?
Do you have Ashley next?
Ashley, then followed by Lucerne.
Good evening. My name is Ashley. I am a Norfolk resident, and my neighbors and I, your neighbors, are not only opposed to flock cameras, but we fear them. And I can only assume that since you haven't terminated the contract with Flock, that you're not afraid of them. And I'm here to tell you that you should be. Let's call the flock cameras what they are. They're a tool for mass surveillance put in place under the guise of reducing crime. And they do not exist in isolation from the political environment that they operate in. We can't pretend that surveillance infrastructure is harmless while fascism is rapidly escalating around us. We are being told clearly and repeatedly that disagreeing with Donald Trump is dangerous and anti-American. We have watched this administration violate the First Amendment rights of citizens, disregarding laws and constitutional protections whenever they are seen as obstacles to maintaining power. That same environment is what makes these surveillance tools dangerous in practice. And we already know that these cameras are being used for more than monitoring violent crime, like tracking people driving across states to receive abortions, something that is not a crime. Flock cameras do not simply monitor crime, they monitor people. Where we go, who we visit, what meetings we attend, and what communities that we belong to. So when we're told that these cameras are only about safety, I think that we need to ask whose safety, what crimes, because this administration has shown us that behavior that is legal today can be considered punishable tomorrow. This is why you should be afraid of flock cameras, not just for your constituents or your neighbors, but for yourselves. When he was asked if there was a limit to his power, Donald Trump said, yes, there is one, my morality. It is the only thing that can stop me. Do your morals align with known con man, pedophile, and racist Donald Trump's? I would like to believe that they don't. But your resistance to ending the contract with Flock begs me to ask the question. Because the reality is this, it is not true that Trump's morality is the limit to his power. You have power right now. Your choices determine whether or not Norfolk becomes another city that helps normalize political intimidation and the targeting of lawful dissent. Your morality and willingness to act matters here. And I've heard you say that you want Norfolk to be a safe place. So I'm asking you to please be that safe place for us. And if you truly do not align yourself with fascism and the erosion of our civil liberties, then please prove it. Hold a vote to terminate Norfolk's contract with Flock Safety and show us where you stand on the matter. Thank you.
Lucerne? Followed by Gabe Harrell.
Good evening. My name is Lucerne de Moravia. I am also a Norfolk resident. Like many of the other Norfolk residents here tonight, I am here to urge the council to immediately terminate their contract with Flock Safety. We have given you plenty of reasons for this already, but I will share another anecdote. In Dayton, Ohio, the local police department assured community members with concerns about the usage of local flock cameras that immigration enforcement was not a permitted use of their cameras. However, upon reviewing the system later, they found that over 7,000 requests had been made to access the camera's data by immigration enforcement. For reference, there are around 250 flock cameras in the Dayton, Ohio area, about the same as we have here in Norfolk. In case you are not concerned about the safety of community members threatened by immigration enforcement, let me raise a different concern. The FLOC system has no oversight by design, allowing anyone with a contract to request data from any of its cameras. Its majority shareholders, including Mark Andreessen, are all known associates of Jeffrey Epstein. There are dozens of cameras in Norfolk alone with views of schools, parks, and playgrounds. If you think it's worth theoretically making it easier for the cops to catch a few more petty criminals a year, and I do stress theoretically since the only study to date claiming that FLOC has increased the rate of crime solving was performed by FLOC employees, then I think we are all right to be concerned about your priorities and the way you are spending taxpayer money, especially considering the community is being underserved in the current budget. Thank you for your time.
Gabe Harrell. And Gabe, it will be followed by Henry Reed.
Hello, Council. It's been a while. My address is different since I got rent-evicted from Pelham Place with 63 other units. So I'm just going to say I'm a Norfolk resident now because I have found that I can't rely on where I live anymore with the city leaders who are currently here. But I'm not here to talk about rent evictions. I'm here to talk about FLOC cameras. So I want to point out a few things. One, FLOC cameras use a lot of cloud storage that is directly linked to data centers, which are completely zapping our water supplies. They are coming in here in all of Hampton Roads, and we are currently in a drought. Okay, we are in some of the worst drought that has been recorded since I think 2008. And I just find it very curious that a cloud system would pull all of our water, therefore describing the water cycle and showing that this is not sustainable. FLOC is linked to that. Another part of this is that FLOC is engaging in unequal and unequitable levels of surveillance. First of all, no one should be surveilled. Second of all, black and people of color communities should not be more surveilled than white communities, which they are. I know where the FLOC cameras are where I live. I can pass them and I can avoid them because I still live in Ghent. So Courtney and Jeremy are still my wards people. That's not the case for black communities. They're not as easy to avoid, and that is directly racist behavior. There's 172 cameras installed in Norfolk according to the city website. Somebody already touched on this, but I want to say that in order to collect plate data, they have to collect everything. It's just like Alexa, it's just like Siri. It listens to everything, it looks at everything, and then it says, oh, this is the relevant information that you need. But in order to find the relevant information, it has to trawl, essentially, like deep sea trawling for fish, all of the data that's out there, and then dilute and titrate down what's actually needed for an investigation. Again, none of this is needed. This is completely so far of overreach, I can't even. I also want to point out an agenda item R4 about the metal detectors, and there's a comment, you know, it sounds like they're wanting to install surveillance in the CSB. I just find it interesting, are they installing surveillance in spas and other areas where people are seeking help, or is it just the CSB? Why is it that people who need help and have nowhere else to go are subject to the most amount of surveillance and also the most amount of persecution from that surveillance? It's not right. You guys know it's not right. I hope you do. And I hope that you're texting each other as you look down in your laps throughout this about how to end that contract, because that's the only action I see up there tonight. Thank you for your time.
Henry Reed. Is Henry? Yes, Henry Reed is followed by Hunter Falk.
Good evening, councilors.
Good evening.
My name is Henry, and I own a home in the Estabrook neighborhood of Ward 2. I'm here with DFLOC Norfolk, a modest but growing movement in your city. I choose now not to address you, council, as councilors, but rather as citizens and leaders of the great city of Norfolk. Citizens, look out while you drive your cars. Look out when you are in your homes. Look out when you are buying groceries. FLOC cameras are hidden all over our city and are constantly collecting data for use in a growing fascist project. Norfolk citizens, these cameras are always on, always watching, and always collecting. Not just your license plate, but but every detail from the make and model of your car down to each individual bumper sticker. FOP cameras do not bring safety to our neighborhoods, but rather show residents they are not welcome in their communities. They tell citizens they are not to be trusted. And they tell people to move far away. All for nearly $500,000 a year. Citizens, FOP cameras build profiles that can predict your daily commute to work, your trips to and from city council meetings, and even that late night trip to the convenience store. These profiles have no safeguards of use and can be used to help the ICE Gestapo in making arrests, stopping voters on their way to the polls, and help the growing power of fascism in our local communities. Counselors, do you want to be complicit in growing fascism? Counselors, sometimes silence speaks volumes. For those citizens and leaders not willing to sit in silence, please feel free to contact us at dfoc.norfolk@proton.me. I repeat, dfoc.norfolk@proton.me. We would like to work with you and find a way to get these invasive cameras removed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Hunter Falk.
Good evening, Council. My name is Hunter Falk. I live in the Norview neighborhood. My children attend the one of the schools that is part of the consolidation. I was originally coming here to talk about the flock cameras, but I wanted to talk about a smaller subset of that. The Aviglion cameras that are being installed at Sherwood Forest, and I'm sure some of the other schools that are being part of this consolidation. So with that, just as was talked about before, there are numerous cases that have been documented regarding having cloud storage cameras that are owned by outside entities, accessed by third parties for a slew of different reasons, whether it is childhood gymnastic centers being accessed or anything like that. My main concern with that is you've got this company that is unanswerable to the community, unanswerable to any of you, that really can kind of get away with whatever they want. And I want to ensure that our schools are not a part of that, seeing as our children really don't have any way to consent to being surveilled constantly, especially given the way that they can be targeted for different things because of that. Whether that is seeing if a child is performing in school or not, and whether they may be ripe for, military service or any other thing that could necessarily disadvantage one child versus the other. The other thing is that these profiles are being built and conducted, and when you have an outside entity that has just open access to all of that, you really hand over the power to somebody else. And with that, I feel that at least with the school cameras, that they should be monitored and contained in-house. They should be closed circuit systems. And that the schools should be put in charge of that. I understand that everything is moving towards the subscription model. I know that I'm not the only person that has seen the rise in Netflix and Disney prices, but it's better to buy once and cry once and just have the actual means to control the system and not have those outside eyes looking in and targeting our community members and that's more or less all I've got to say. So, thank you.
You.